Hello and welcome to the Financial Independence UK podcast. Join your hosts Tom and Alex as we talk about wealth creation, financial planning and personal development specifically for the UK.
Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of the UK FI podcast. My name is Alvar, and a couple of weeks ago I saw a really random Reddit thread, and somebody was posting there like, hey, I would like to start a podcast in the UK. I was like, hey, I would like to do that as well. So I responded to that message, and a couple of people more joined in, and one of them is my current and future co-host. How are you doing?
Hi, yes, I'm doing well, thanks.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself to get started, maybe?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Tom. I'm 25. I work in risk in a financial services company, and I'm quite keen on personal finance and trying to retire as early as possible. And to do that, I do a mixture of my job income and side hustles and budgeting, reducing my expenses. So how about yourself?
Cool, thanks, Tom. My name is Alvar. I live in Edinburgh, as obviously everybody will hear. I am not from the UK or Scotland or any of the Commonwealth or whatever. I am Dutch. Moved to Scotland 2 years ago, Edinburgh, working in IT over here. I'm also somebody, or some people will be familiar with my voice. I'm also the host of another podcast called the Financial Independence Europe podcast, but just felt like, okay, hey, I live in the UK now. I feel it's time for a podcast like locally here that's really focusing just truly on the UK and maybe also a little bit more about myself. So I'm 26 years old. I work in IT here in Edinburgh. Do a bit of everything, kind of like if it comes to like IT, from tech support to development to web development to consultancy, and kind of like combine all those partly through like my main job. Got my own development company, web development, and a few other bits and blobs on the side. And kind of like financial independence, I roughly earn like 35-ish K through my main job. I got various other sources of income, consisting of own business, hopefully soon also real estate, and just little side gigs. And that combination, I'm trying to save up. If we all calculate it together, I make a reasonable amount a year. But for kind of like sharing purposes, I like to stick to the main job, the 35K I earn over there. I probably from that save a good 1.4, 1.5 on a monthly basis. And that all literally goes, boom, Vanguard ISA, VWRL, purchase, and rinse and repeat. And that's kind of like the strategy I tend to follow if it comes to the UK, because I really love the ISA system. No taxes, tax-free growth, no tax on dividends, and that works pretty amazing. But hey, Tom, what I'm also curious about, like, how do you do that yourself? How have you got your investment set up?
Yeah, so it's quite similar to what you just said, actually. I save around about £1,000 a month from my main income. And at the moment, because I've got all my sort of emergency fund and cash savings set up, that everything is going straight into a stocks and shares ISA. It's very unlikely that I'll ever max out the 20K a year savings. So at the moment, it's all been ploughed straight into there. I've got one with Vanguard, currently Life Strategy 100. I've heard a few sort of criticisms perhaps I should be in global all cap instead because of the UK bias in LF 100. But at the moment, all in Life Strategy 100. And then in additional to that £1,000 from my job, I save probably somewhere around about £500 to £600 a month from my side income, which is all sort of side hustle, online stuff, very high money per hour, very sort of low contact, low organization stuff. Main part of that is something like match betting, stuff like Beer Money UK, where loads of referral links and sign up offers, that sort of stuff. You can earn some really, really good, easy, quick money doing that sort of stuff. And then other than that, I've got my cash LISA, which I'm saving up to buy a house probably in the next 5 years, I would say. Have you got a cash LISA, Oliver?
Yeah, actually, I do through Skipton, and same story as well in your case. I also want to purchase a property soon-ish, and every year together with my partner, throwing 8K in there, getting the 25% top-up, making it 10K. I'm going to repeat that this year, and then straight away next year, on the first day of the new tax year, making for a 30K deposit, and hopefully using that to purchase a property within the next 18 months. And Tom, also one thing I'm pretty curious about, like, why the heck would you want to like start a podcast like this? Like spend hundreds of hours, earn nothing, and tell the whole world about, you know, all your financial privacy related issues and everything around it. Like, what motivates you to do this?
That's a very good question. Well, I listen to quite a lot of personal finance podcasts in my spare time, all through the podcasts iTunes app. And I've always felt there's not a lot of stuff relating to UK personal finance. So I've always had in the back of my mind that one day perhaps I'd start some sort of podcast myself. And then when the message that you mentioned on the personal finance Reddit, as soon as that came up, I thought, yeah, why not? Let's just go for it. And in terms of having my information out there, it can be a little bit worrying, I guess. But I've always thought that people don't talk about money enough. So I'm quite happy to say, like, yeah, I earn X amount a year, I save X amount a month, because I think really it's not, it's something that we should be speaking about. We should be educating people on it. So, you know, if I can help people out by giving people tips, explaining how I've got my finances set up, that's something I'd happily share. How did you first hear about personal finance?
In my case, well, I've always been interested in it, like, you know, intrinsically just by myself, by being frugal. My parents were horrible with money, and I kind of like through their mistakes and the way they lost tens of thousands through pretty shitty investment vehicles and them wasting money, I kind of always kind of resisted through that. Wanted to be frugal, in the beginning I wanted to be rich, and kind of like that idea drove me more towards financial independence and personal finance. Just before the 2008 crisis, I was already, I believe I was like 16 or 17 at the time. I was playing with term deposits and shares through an account, which I believe I had to be 18 for at the time. But anyway, I was trading around with shares and term deposits. And that just, from that early age, I was interested in it. Kind of like that grew from like something I was intrinsically interested in to more like a hobby, into kind of like, okay, hey, this is a tool to earn money, to turn a euro or a pound, whatever, into two, get the compounding effect rolling. And that just really intrigued me, and finding ways to do that, finding ways to multiply it, make it go faster. That's really like what triggered it more and more for me. And as a student, I was extremely frugal, and that was kind of like, that's where I learned also like what the kind of damage money can do to you, in the sense of if you focus too much on it. I was studying in the Netherlands. I was probably living on like 350 euro a month. The Netherlands is a little bit cheaper than the UK, but even that's just nothing to live off. And then I met my current partner and kind of like slowly learned like, okay, money is a tool. It's meant to be enjoyed, and kind of like that whole combination is what drove me more and more towards financial independence, seeing it as a tool, seeing the opportunities and just the options it buys you. Because that's one thing I've always had. Kind of like, okay, it's nice to have money, but money on itself is useless. It's a tool, it buys you options, and in the end, when I can decide I don't care about the balls anymore, or I just want to resign or do something else, I can do that. And that's where I'm kind of like upping your question a little bit and changing it up as well, but just because I felt like it. And yeah, anyway, so being able to quit when I feel like it, or like, you know, design the life I feel we should live or we can live. That's where I really think it should be about. But then I also want to turn it around. Where did it all start for you? Like, was it also on an early age, or are you like a recent convert?
It was a very similar scenario, actually. It was during university, so I was probably 19, 20. It was toward the end of university. And I was interested in budgeting. I was looking at how to make my money last longer, how to be frugal, how to cut down things like food shopping, that sort of stuff. And it sort of naturally grew from there until I got my first job. And I thought, you know what, let's try and be as efficient as possible. Let's be organized with this. And now I've got a decent income coming in. Let's try and put it to the best use that I can. And that sort of leads you to learn about sort of budgeting tips, savings accounts, pensions, all that sort of stuff. And sort of before I knew it, I'd found the personal finance flowchart. I'd found Reddit threads, podcasts. I'd found about financial independence. And, you know, sort of 2-3 years later, you've got everything set up. You've got Vanguard ISAs, and it all happens sort of very quickly. But yeah, it all started out as I wanted to do something more efficient with my money. And then it grew into, oh, actually, I don't think I can work 9 to 5 every day for 40 years. I want the options to do something more interesting, perhaps self-employed, be your own boss, or do a mixture of online jobs. I think that financial independence, it gives you that freedom to take choice and take action into the things that you actually sort of want to do. You don't feel as though you have to do these things that everyone else does.
What is your end goal? Like, when do you plan to be financially independent or retire?
I think I try to stray away mentally from a particular year because I don't want to sort of disappoint myself. But if I'm 25 now, I'd like to be financially independent by 45. And I think, if you take 55 as pension age, you'll be a bit older by the time we get there. But if you take 55 as pension age, I don't class that as early retirement. So I'd say like 50 is probably what I would call the earliest, like the latest that you could early retire. So if I retired at 45, I'd be quite happy. But really, because I'm quite aggressive with my savings, it should mathematically be closer to 40, really. How about yourself?
Yeah, for me, like, I think 2 years back, I said, okay, I want to retire by 30, be done with it, be financially independent. And I'm kind of coming back from that more and more. The end goal is just living the best possible life, living a rich and meaningful life, doing whatever I want and it feels best and is best for me, partner, family, and everything. So in terms of a number, I've always said 300,000 and a bit of house. I've always considered that kind of like, okay, once I've got that, I honestly don't need more than 1,000 passive a month to live a really good quality of life. End goal, when, what, and how, I will probably, like, realistically speaking, if I keep working at the pace I'm at now, including the house, probably 35-ish. But I don't want to aim at that. If I feel like in a year I want to take 3 years off and go traveling, so be it. Then it takes 3 years longer. That's also fine. So the end goal is buying myself options, but also making the actual journey of getting there as enjoyable as possible, and not skimping on, like going for dinner, etc., or like the small minor things. For me, like, I believe in the bigger picture. Things like in terms of like your shoppings, transport, the taxes you pay, health insurance, rent, like the big items, saving on those, and not trying to like save on £3 here, £4 there. It matters, but it's not the end of the world if you spend like 3 on whatever, or you go on holiday once, more or less. But Tom, one thing I'm curious about, because what makes the UK so unique? Why start? Because we've been talking a little bit about ourselves now, our background. Like, why start a podcast for the UK? There's so many podcasts out there. I've got my own idea behind it, but I'm first curious, about yours. Like, why start one?
I think the biggest thing for me is that the financial independence movement is getting bigger, but it's not very big in the UK. There are so many people I've spoken to, and they have absolutely no idea about the concept of having money invested in the stock market and that you can live off, like, that it's completely alien to people. So I think that it's born out of a desire to educate people. It's born out of a desire to find people similar to yourself who can help educate you. And I think it's sort of born out of a desire to sort of make the most of the good situation we have here. I think that in a lot of cases, it's easier, should I say, than the US to reach FI with things like free healthcare with the NHS. The amount of money that Americans have to save up to accommodate for those sort of injuries and illnesses in later life, that they've got a much harder job than us in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think there's definitely a gap in the market in the UK for this sort of stuff. So I've always thought in the back of my mind, I'd love to do this. I'd love to maybe get something started and be one of the first people to do this. So how about you, Oliver? How come you're living in the UK?
Good one. Well, honestly, it has nothing to do with pension system or money. I could earn far more in pretty much any other European country. Well, definitely given the drop in the pound we've seen recently. But I moved to the UK for the open-mindedness for the people Scotland, specifically Edinburgh in my case, because it's just an extremely nice cultural city. There's a lot going on at this very moment. We got a Fringe with thousands and thousands of festivals, and just being able to go there, the museums, the meetups. I mean, for me specifically, also the tech scene, fintech, which is really big over here and which attracted me as well. But that combination made me come over here. And one thing I really feel why there's like a place for a UK specific podcast is because the UK as a system, as a pension system, is far more advantageous, superior versus a lot of other European countries. And well, I live here. There is a ton of research that can be done here, tons and tons of good websites, but nothing like kind of like in a podcast format. And things like Money Saving Supermarkets, amazing website, like, and all the Reddit forum. There's so much good information out there, but I feel podcast for some people is another medium to be reached. It's my own personal favorite over actually reading blogs, and I like talking more than writing. So hey, why not start a podcast? Through that, so I feel like that combination of having a medium that's not there yet, the great information that's out there, and converting it into a great audio format. And I feel like also a podcast can add an extra dimension in terms of value, like the discussion we can have here. If I read a blog, obviously I can read a conversation, but it will never ever come across in the same way as, like having a one-on-one conversation and really, going deep. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of like motivation behind it. And since I already started a podcast, I like starting podcasts, and people who feel like, okay, let's do that as well. And then at the same time, interview the great minds we've got around in this country. Honestly, and that's also the thing, being able to interview really, really smart people who are far smarter than me. I've already interviewed through my other podcast quite a few of the other guys in the UK, the podcasts. Yeah, for example, Foxy Monkey or Barney Widener, the escape artist, guys with pretty big blogs, but also who have written amazing articles, and like the lengths they go to in terms of research. They're smart, and being able to pick their brains and kind of like converting those ideas and being able to apply them also to my own life. I can literally use their ideas and earn money through it. It's a one-on-one conversion, often just really simple things. Learn from them, pick their brains, and go from there. And I think you've got a pretty awesome podcast if we actually get that done, which would be awesome.
Yeah, no, that's something I sort of can't agree more with. There are definitely a lot of sort of decent resources around the UK. It's just a little bit difficult to find, or a little bit more difficult to find than in the US, for example. I think with things like iTunes, like the podcasts app, is that if you ever search for financial independence, there's tons and tons of US stuff, and you have to sift through a little bit more to get into the UK stuff. So you mentioned quite a few big names there. Are you able to explain that in a bit more detail, the people that you've interviewed in your other podcasts?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I'm happy to share, within all like the financial independence world, the UK after the US is the biggest place, kind of like in terms of numbers and also in terms of blogs. And I feel that like the guys I've already interviewed, the ones I mentioned, for example, Foxy Monkey or Barney Widener from the Escape Artist. Ken is also a great one to mention. I hope they want to come on again on this show as well. Would be cool to interview them, but this time really from like a UK context. But yeah, interviewing them was just really, okay, guys, let's sit down. And as I mentioned earlier, pick their brains, get kind of like their origin stories, because it's often more than just like, I'm not sure if we're like inventing the concept for this podcast on the spot now as well. We'll talk on that in a second. But yeah, it's kind of like, you pick their brains, you get their strategies and ideas out of them. But at the same time, you want inspiration, because they're all unique, really inspiring people. And like, the stories they've gone through, the businesses they've set up, the money they've earned and saved. Some of them they've done like pretty awesome things and they've earned millions, or they grinded through a job for 10 years, dumped it in an ISA, saved it up, and did it through that method. And kind of like picking their brains, getting their strategies over, being inspired, combining that and getting that conversation. Like that's really like the experience I've always had, like with interviewing them. And Donna, I'm really curious, because we haven't even 100% talked about the whole concept and how we want to approach things. But I'm curious what you're going to think when I'm going to say next. So I feel that like the interview concept is great, but I also feel like, you should combine it with kind of like, okay, I've got a main team in an episode. that can be anything from like a safe withdrawal rate, or kind of like what's actually an ISA, how do I use it, what are the strategies around it, and get like a true, like a case study on from somebody who's doing it, and kind of like asking them questions, picking their brains. I feel that is like a concept, 30, 35 minutes, just simple, easy episodes you can listen to in your lunch break. Those are the ones I would want to listen to. What do you think of that as a concept?
I totally agree. That's something that's where I listen to podcasts on my lunch break. I've only got about 30, 40 minutes to have a walk around, stretch my legs. So something where it's nice and concise. As you say, it sticks around a key theme. You have perhaps 3, 4 people sort of chiming in with their perspectives. I think that's the right sort of thing to do. And to keep it casual as well, I think if you want to reach a greater audience, if you go into too much detail about particular financial products or about strategies and stuff, I think you can kind of lose people, where there's definitely a large sort of proportion of casual personal finance, financial independence listeners that would appreciate light touches on certain topics rather than going full depth into your investment portfolio or, how much you make exactly from your side incomes. That like, I think there's definitely a lot of merit to keeping things simple.
Cool, gotcha. And like, given that concept, what can people expect from you? What would be like your unique take on interviews? What would be the things like you would be interested in to learn about yourself?
But I think a great emphasis for me has always been side income, where I've never wanted to rely on my main income too much. It's something that I like to sort of have a bit of fun with my main job, to try and explore different avenues. For example, I've worked in accountancy and now I've worked in banking. So I've got no intention of sticking to one career path. So something like side incomes, that's the kind of different sort of, that's the sort of different perspective that I bring. But in terms of learning from other people, it'd be great to learn about different professions that I've got sort of no way of getting into. For example, IT. I understand it can be a very, very high paying job at top level, but it's something that, I'm never really going to be a coder or anything like that. So it's be interesting to hear about different jobs. And also with people like yourself who come from other parts of Europe, it's good to hear about what they think of the UK system. And, you mentioned earlier about you think the pension system here is better. It'd be really good to learn from other people and from different walks of life. I think we got quite a good tool.
Cool, gotcha. And also good to mention, guys, we'll potentially have another 1/2 co-hosts coming on. I don't think it will always be the 4 of us or the 3. We'll kind of like rotate around. And that's also just good to mention. The more guys behind the scene who will join in, they will reveal their names and their story, hopefully in episode 2 or 3. And I kind of like, Tom, correct me if you feel different, but what I would really kind of like feel is we want to aim at getting like a good core 5 basic episodes out there. This is just an introduction episode, but episode 2, like cover the basics of FI in the UK, how to get the job done, and kind of like go from there, build on top of that in 3, 4, and 5, which exact teams we will figure out later on. But as a second team, what is FI in the UK, and kind of like how the heck do you get it done, will, I think, make a great second episode.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I think it's good to get a selection of episodes, as you say, 5 episodes, where anyone who stumbles across the podcast has a good idea of who's going to appear, what topics you're going to cover. And I think it gives you a good little platform for us to expand from, to see, what kind of topics are getting more traction and more interest from people. And I think it's good to introduce people to who we are, our sort of perspectives, our outlooks. So if people listen in, they go, oh yeah, this guy, he's doing something similar to me, he's a similar age or whatever, so I can listen to them, listen to their story. I think we can help a lot of people like that. And from what I gather, there aren't that many podcasts where there are multiple hosts. There's quite a lot where you have 1, maybe 2 hosts, but I think we'll be quite unique in having 3, 4, 5 different hosts.
True. And I think like 99% of all podcasts I listen to have 1 or 2 hosts, and it's really, really hard to combine 4 people at once while you interview somebody. But at the same time, if you moderate it well and you've got 4 guys either having a discussion together, I don't think that works too well for like literally interviewing somebody, but for like from a discussion point of view, and when it's really kind of like I think that would work great, and let's give it a shot.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think if you had 4 people interviewing one guy, that probably wouldn't go very well. But no, I think it'd be really, really interesting to hear different people's stories, have loads of different perspectives on the idea. I think that'd be really good.
Cool, gotcha. I think this would be a nice way to round up the episode. Now then, I hope this has been interesting for everybody and you feel like listening to episode 2. Again, it's a new project. We're all of us new into this, so forgive us if we make minor silly mistakes. It will get better over time. If it comes to audio quality and website and everything, it will, we're going to do our best to get a good show and good information out there. So yeah, guys, that would be the first episode. Anyway, Tom, thank you so much for helping me with this one.
No, thanks for having me, Alvar. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Same, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for listening to the Financial Independence UK podcast. We hope you found it useful. If you have any questions or ideas for us, feel free to email at fi.ukpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time.